Today is the 4th of July when Americans celebrate independence and there's lots and lots of fireworks. The very first fireworks show was in Philadelphia in 1777 and tradition continues in spectacular fashion even today with people spending as much as 2.3 billion US dollars on fireworks. Funnily enough, the actual Declaration of Independence was not signed on the 4th of July in 1776. It was signed 1 month later. Welcome to Kaleidoscope, where we are positive, daring, different. We're exploring the deep blue sea, dissecting the role of women in banking and getting into high spirits at the National Bartenders competition today. Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. Don't forget to subscribe, follow and like us. A massive thank you to our amazing partners on the show, Srilanka Life, CDB, The Daily Morning. You're amazing.
CDB Hybrid Leasing. Enjoy exclusive interest rate and much more for hybrids, plug-in hybrids and EV vehicles.
Looking back at the week that was on CDB Snapshot.
The numbers are in. Sri Lanka's foreign debt total is 37 billion US dollars. The Sri Lankan government announces a new 20 billion rupee loan package to boost small and SME enterprises. The Sri Lankan rupee is the top performing currency among emerging markets with a spot return of 5.94%. Sri Lanka scores a significant 0.44 in the IMF's AI Preparedness Index. All-girl Muslim metal band Voice of Bachaprot are the first ever Indonesian band to play at Glastonbury. Vermont University gives a cat named Max an honorary Doctor of Literature degree.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Srilanka Life.
Welcome to Srilanka Life News Capsule. According to a newly published report by IFC, Sri Lanka leads South Asia in women in banking, but significant challenges remain. While we are ahead of the rest of our South Asian peers, the number of women at board level is 27% only, as opposed to Nepal's 20% and Bangladesh's 14%. This is especially interesting considering that 46% of new recruits in Sri Lanka are women. So the question remains, where are women at a disadvantage? Here to help us face facts is gender lead for IFC Sri Lanka, Aarti Arunasalam. She was the lead in compiling the IFC's report on women's advancement in banking in emerging South Asian countries. Aarti, welcome to the show. Now, the obvious question is, what do women bring into the banking sector?
Having more women as employees and as leaders does lead to multiple business performance metrics, better reduced risk management, and also increased ability to attract new customers. This also translates, when you have more women bankers as leaders, it translates into having more return on equity, close to 33%. For Sri Lanka, we conducted a study on the women on boards in the Colombo listed stock exchange listed companies, and the study results mirrored more or less the same. What's also interesting to note is when you look at the stock prices, and especially the stock prices increases when you have more women as leaders from 1% to 1.65% on the day of disclosure.
What were the key findings in your study?
When we look at it more broadly of the three countries, Nepal was leading when it came to women representation, and Bangladesh was quite significantly lagging behind. We also noticed that when you look at the South Asia average amongst the three countries, we were at 30%, but way lagging behind the global average of 52%. And then when you kind of dive deeper into the Sri Lankan businesses and what in the banking sector, what we noticed was 40% of the women there's high women representation in the entry level. But as you move into the middle management and then into the senior management, this significantly drops, which is what we call as the broken rung.
So, what are Sri Lankan banks doing right, if at all, in this sphere?
One thing that was really coming out strongly is that we're doing something right at the entry level to recruit more women, and we're doing something right at the board level, right? And when you look at the policies and practices, all banks have a very strong DE&I policy and very much focused on thriving and creating an enabling work environment. But I must also highlight probably a few banks who have done a few initiatives that has enabled them to accelerate more women in the banking sector more broadly. So one being Standard Chartered Bank, who has introduced unconscious bias training for the leaders so that it kind of creates an equitable work environment for both men and women, which is something that could be replicated in other banks as well. We also have very strong performance related matrix and creating a feedback mechanism where the managers are also being trained on certain manners is where HNB and HSBC are also banks that are following it.
And now for a peek at our markets this week.
At the Colombo Stock Exchange, the oil share price index moved down slightly but was still close to all-time highs reached in April this year. Oil prices rose above $86 per barrel this week, a 10-week high after renewed tensions in the Middle East and a bigger than expected drawdown in US crude stockpiles. Gold prices moved down slightly, edging closer to $2,300 per ounce, but prices remained very close to all-time highs.
Toys R Us showcased their newest advertisement made entirely out of text-to-video artificial intelligence. It's getting harder and harder to tell the difference, isn't it? South Sudan is home to the largest known migration of land mammals on Earth. And even though the country is ravaged by war, scientists say the numbers of animals migrating has increased from the 1980s to over 2 million. A few weeks ago, we promised you more news about our heart and lungs, that vast blue space we call the ocean. What better time to do that than when celebrating World Oceans Day, which fell in June? This year, the theme is Awaken New Depths, and that's exactly what we are going to do today. Based on the World Register of Marine Species, there are about 242,000 marine species that we know of living in the world's oceans, and we are discovering and naming about 2,000 new species on average per year. So what lies beneath the ocean? Joining me today to take a deep dive into the ocean is the founder and coordinator of Pearl Protectors and also an economist, Mudita Katuawala, who we have interviewed on Kaleidoscope during the Express Pearl disaster. What should we know and what don't we know about the ocean?
The world is covered mostly in the ocean. More than 70% of the biodiversity is in the ocean, and this is the largest ecosystem ever. And so the air we breathe, the food we eat is all thanks to the ocean. 70% of the oxygen is generated because of the thanks to the ocean. And so of course Sri Lanka is no stranger to this. We are an island and the ocean is all around us. Our monsoons, our weather patterns, the food we eat, the industries that we depend on, 30% of our population is on the coast. And so there's huge potential when it comes to the benefits we get from the ocean, but at the same time we see a plethora of marine biodiversity, especially the Sri Lankan waters. We see so many tropical marine biodiversity. We see sea turtles. We see 5 out of 7 species of sea turtles coming to lay eggs or nest in shorelines. This is one of the rarest occasions. And then we have so many whales, non-migratory whales as well. We have so much of coral species. Reef fish, we have about 400 different species of reef fish. And the list goes on. But then we are facing a lot of challenges, especially our ocean. But thanks to the ocean, Sri Lanka is surviving thanks to the ocean. Our sea around Sri Lanka is 20 times bigger than our island itself. Sri Lanka is also special because we see some of the most beautiful shipwrecks around Sri Lanka, and this harbors a lot of marine species as well.
Do we Sri Lankans really value what we have in the sea? Do we know what we have in the sea?
It's because of this lack of awareness, lack of understanding. As an organization, the Pearl Protectors is also trying to create awareness amongst people, trying to link this beauty, the importance of conserving and protecting the ocean with the people.
Policy-wise, how much needs to change and how can we get it implemented?
The ocean-based resource economy is an area, if we do it right in a sustainable manner, it will potentially benefit Sri Lanka, but at the same time will incentivize protecting and conserving the marine environment. We've seen small island nations like Maldives, Seychelles, even in the Pacific Ocean, there are islands that are harnessing the benefits through their ocean, and they, being small islands, they don't have a lot of space on land, so they do have to depend on the ocean. By doing so, they have been able to protect their marine environment. So there is a definite need for a national policy framework, a long-term national policy framework to better manage our fisheries, better conserve and protect our marine environment, and also to see how Sri Lanka can benefit by utilizing the ocean in an effective and a sustainable way. Some of the examples I can bring you is Viditalathip right now. Viditalathip is the third largest mangrove reserve in Sri Lanka. It can sequester so much of carbon, especially at a time when we see everybody talk about climate change, carbon sequestration. Seagrass and mangroves are one of the best sequesters of carbon. But at the same time, this reserve has been partially degazetted to increase aquaculture production. Aquaculture in Sri Lanka hasn't been done sustainably. 5-6 years into aquaculture industries, you could see a lot of these tanks being just let go because they haven't properly managed it. So it's the same thing that will replicate in Viditalathip as well. And in another 5-6 years, we will lose our mangroves. At the same time, this land will not be able to be used properly.
Welcome to Kaleidoscope Life in 60. There was much shaking and stirring and mixing of spirits at the National Bartenders competition when over 260 mixologists vied to become the country's best bartender. The competition brought out the best in skill and artistry, with every bartender being in high spirits as they tried to impress the judges with some super tasty cocktails being mixed. Demonstrating unparalleled finesse and creativity, Shan Hussain aced the classic category, while BMC D. Bandara dazzled in the flair category. Bandara was also voted the most popular bartender online. Adil Sama emerged as the most promising bartender. Powered by IDL and the Sri Lanka Hotel Graduates Association, the contest was first run through regions across the country, with masterclasses and training workshops added to the mix to uplift the skill and creativity levels in the bartending profession. As you can see, our mixologists are doing great. There is something about all that mixing and stirring and shaking and flaring that adds a spiritual lift to the being. Enjoy. We'll be back next week with another action-packed show. See you then.